I'm from down the road, about a 14-hour flight away. I'm going to live on the edge, and we're going to do a live demo from the start of taking an idea and turning it into an application. We've been building a no-code platform for several years. And 2 years ago, we thought it would be a pretty cool idea if we could integrate it with Figma and other design tools. We just chose Figma because the reason we saw before that everyone kept standing, most of you kept standing. We thought, well, if we can take a Figma design and turn it into either a responsive website or a native application without coding, that's pretty cool. And we've been going great guns. And then, a few months ago, this AI revolution, and we actually tried to do this with IBM Watson about 2-3 years ago, and we failed. And then when the new AIs came out over the last few months, we thought we'll give it a crack again. And so what I'm going to show you is tech preview at this point in time. It's not released. We've just released it to a small number of users at the moment. We actually put up a wait list. So if you go to www.buzzy.buzz, get on our wait list. We've got about over 3,000 people in the last week. So it's been truly amazing. And I thank everybody for joining. So because by the way, my nickname is Adma because I can't spell my own name. So I'm going to copy and paste the prompt. I thought I'd start off with, I wrote sort of 3 prompts for apps to get going. Was that Siri? One of them was for a sports app, one was for a winery app, and the other was for surf spots. By the way, I'm a surfer. Which one do you want to go? Who's a wine drinker? Okay, a few wine drinkers. Should we go with that one? Yeah, let's do it. So I wrote this literally as I was sitting up over there before, and I've zoomed in my Figma over here, so hopefully you can see that as best as possible. We're a Figma plugin. We've got a ability for you to add a prompt in. So the prompt that I'll just read this out because I know it's going to be really, really small. So create a winery app that lists wineries from around the world. For each of the wineries, include name, location, image, list of wines, history, interesting info. For each wine, include the name, image, grape, description, list of foods that goes with alcohol content, and allow users to review each wine. Add the ability to allow users to add wineries, wines, and reviews. So there's a lot of thinking time over here. So we're using LangChain. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. It's a bit of middleware that allows you to do some cool stuff with AIs out there. We're currently using OpenAI, ChatGPT 4 APIs. I think as we go forward, it's pretty amazing what it can do. As we go forward, we'll see if other AIs will bring them in a certain part of the process. But what we've done over here is we've come up with a process where you start off with a prompt of some sort and you define, it helps you write a brief. So I'm a geek, in tech terms, that was generally a spec or specification of what the application should do. Now you can make that as long or as short as you need. We just started off with something pretty simple. I did say to Jackson that this demo, we are using it. Some of these steps take a number of minutes, so there's a really good chance for you to ask questions during the presentation as opposed to the end. So while it's doing this, and then I'll just interrupt if I'm answering a question and we see this, like now, I'll just go straight to it. So this is the first version of the spec. So we can see here we've got the description, a winery app list wineries, blah, 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 some functions. So we can browse the wineries, we can view wine details, we can review wines, we can add wineries, add wines, manage reviews, and there's just some different user roles. Now, we made this an iterative process. So if that specification is not right, then we can make a change. So I could just type into chat window here that, hey, add this or remove this, or please add these features. To keep the demo going over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that's a pretty good spec, and I'm going to generate the data model. So one of the things that we found with two main challenges we found with our existing tool, which took a Figma design and turned it into a working application, was you had to have good Figma skills. You had to know all the best practices. You need to know how to use things like auto layouts and make it responsive in that. And not everybody knows how to do that. So the first thing we wanted to do is have a solution that generated a best practices Figma file. So we'll see that the result of that a bit later. The other key area that we found that designers specifically or business people who are defining these prompts, in the normal tool, you'd need to know how to define that data model. Now, I'm a geek. I know how to do that. I need to know how to create a many-to-many or one-to-many relationship, come up with my data structures. We found that for using ChatGPT, it was amazing, like scarily amazing at working out what the data model was. We then take that as input and then allow us to then generate the screens. So you need to know what the data is before you know what's going on the screens. For a designer, you'd need to have the ability to do that, and some designers do have that capability, or information architecture. Others need to call in a geek to come and do that. So this was something that we felt would accelerate the process dramatically. When we click the publish at the end, this will be a full stack app, the database, the compute, all the code running in the cloud on a Kubernetes infrastructure that can be scaled horizontally, vertically, in a enterprise manner. For the native app, under the covers, we're using React Native that reads the data definition. So you're getting a true native app that can be put into the app stores on either Android or iOS, all from a Figma file. So the idea is that you can iterate and design in your Figma file. You can change things. You can generate content. You can also integrate the content to external sources. So if there was an API somewhere that had a list of wineries and wines, we could suck that into the system or integrate with it. So the first step was to find the brief. The second step over here is actually what we call the model, the data model. So if we look at what it's come up with, so we can see over here, we've got the first data table over here is the winery one. So it's got it's got a rich text field for history. By the way, we've got it hooking into Unsplash for the images, which is why they're URLs, which is why it says plain text. We do actually have an image component, so we could come in and change this. The idea as well is that this is iterative. We are the intelligent human in the loop here that is directing the AI to create this stuff and do things really quickly. This data model also understands things like for each winery, there is a subtable or one-to-many relationship of wines. Like this is a very simple example, but understanding those data relationships and cross-linking and many-to-many and foreign fields and stuff, we're doing all of that. Now, if we look at a wine has alcohol content, it's a number, description, it's got some food pairing, some text, grape, it's got image again, and then it's got a name, and then another subtable, which are the reviews. So think of like a parent-child relationship. We've got a winery, has many wines, and each wine underneath that then has many reviews. So that looks pretty good. There's some user data over here, so if you wanted to have the ability to do that. So let's do that. That actually looks pretty good. So I do a lot of demos. Like I said, I do 7. I often have to correct it at this point. So you could come back into the AI, or you could come in manually and make it work. Now, this is smoke and mirrors, this tab. We will allow you to modify the theme. But what we're going to do now is let's go and generate the app design. So we are taking the brief plus the data model, and we are also taking a design UI kit. Let's have a look at one of these. I think we're using this one here. Oops, sorry, these are the components. So Figma is all about design UI kit, kind of almost like it's quite a geeky concept. You create all these components and you can use that to construct your designs and your application designs very, very quickly. So these atoms, molecules, style information are all in the design system that is going to be used to generate the Figma file. So this is all totally customizable. So for all of those who kept standing when we talked about Figma, this is just bog standard Figma components, reusable items that you can use to construct your designs. Now it's going to use this. Now this design kit over here knows nothing about a winery system. So it's going to be used to generate, we're going to see over here, this is going to go and generate. So it's going through its definitions of what it thinks it needs for the screens. So it's going to create update, delete, the CRUD, create, read, update, delete, all the CRUD screens for the application. So you can edit and maintain the content. It's going to come up with things like the list views and all that sort of stuff. So good time for questions. I can't show them to you because they're customer projects. We've got a customer at the moment that I actually counted up the screens yesterday. They've got an application which is on mobiles for retirement villages. And each of the homeowners within that retirement village, they can come in and they can book events and book facilities like a tennis court or whatever it is. Then there's a concept of like community managers who manage those communities. There's 80 of these retirement villages around the country. And then there's all the general sort of head office, like administration, user management, all that sort of stuff. I think there was like 172 screens in that. They created that entire application bar, I think, one screen, which had a custom code component straight out of Figma. It's pretty insane. There's another customer, and by the way, the end users are using a native application to interact with that. So the people who live in the villages, people living on their desktops in their offices and managing the people, are all using browser-based stuff. So it's pretty like next level. Another customer that comes to mind is a medical one. They've got a native application that syncs with a Bluetooth blood pressure monitor for patients at home that feeds that data in, and then therapists have a user administration interface so they can see those patients and interact with them, message them, look at their results and say, hey, I think your blood pressure is a bit high today. Please do this. So there's a lot of use cases that we can do today. There are probably a couple of key patterns. So the simple content stuff that we're doing over here is like a no-brainer. The business process reengineering stuff, the AI will probably today get you to a point very quickly, but you as a human are going to have to come in and do that design work and that process and hook things up. It's just not good enough yet. I think as we start to see patterns, we'll make it easier for you to be able to do those bits. We'll start to understand more and more of the patterns for those particular things. We've actually, it's actually generated the screens. The reason, by the way, I had to click the button over there. You can actually tell it just go all the way to the end. Is it gives me as a human the ability to get involved and fix things along the way. So again, this is a very simple application, and so on. So what you're going to see pop up, like check that out. These are the screens for our winery app. So there's some boilerplate stuff in here. So it's come up with a name like World of Wineries. It's got all the modals for things like, things I found. It's come up, this is like a list of wineries. These are the top rated wines. So it's going to pull this data out. Now, for me to be able to go and create these screens manually, it's a huge amount of effort. And it's like, I think if you looked at what Buzzy was doing today with Figma designs to working apps, we'd probably make things 10 times faster. I don't know how much faster this makes things, but it might be 100 times. I don't know. Depends on the application. So it's going to make this. So if you look at it, it's got all the different screens over here. So this is the application that we just generated. you can see all those CRUD screens and everything. Now, this is where the magic happens, right? If I click convert to new app, this is going to create a new application on the server that's running with the database structure, all the screens, based on what's been marked up in Figma. If I was to build that Figma file manually and go and mark everything up, we get the same result. I can give any one of you this Figma file from tonight. Maybe we'll make it available at the link. So what I was going to say, if you see that QR code, I don't know if it's going to work from that far away. Come up to the screen, hit it with your phone. We're going to have a look at the app that we just created. Is I hit the generate sample data, it takes quite a bit of time. So if we look at what you're seeing on your phone, and yet, by the way, this is like a test server. You're probably going to crash it. It usually comes up straight away. For those of you who've got it on the screen, are you guys seeing the app over there? Okay, so you can go in and create a winery. You can start adding your wines. Obviously, there's no content in it yet because we haven't integrated that with some sort of back-end database. And we'll start to see. This will take a few minutes. We'll start to see the dummy data come through in a few minutes. Hey, this is like, okay, yeah. So here's our world of wineries. We can go in and we can explore that. Here's it. Somebody's come up with a sick winery. Please don't put any swear words in there. This has been recorded for children. So there's no security on this. So you could come in afterwards and set the security up on this and have things like user login and stuff like that. So if you look at this is the Iron Horse one in here. There's no wines in this one yet, so we could add wine. So I'm going to put a wine over here. So by the way, I'm a beer drinker. The last wine I had, it was when I was 16. And I swore I'd never drink it again. I suppose wine's usually about like 7% or something. Food pairings, I don't know, bread. So I'm going to submit that. So what I want to show you is like things like those modals and everything are all wired together, like they just work straight out of the box. So there's that wine. It's a Pinot. I could come in and I could put reviews over here. So a great wine, and we can go do that. If each of you went into that wine, that one that I just created, and went to put a review in, we'll see that data there. So there is a real database, a real system. It's scalable. Sitting under the covers that does it. So that's what we've been doing. First up, OpenAI knows zero about Figma. So all the Figma integration is done in our code. So any like best practices they take, for example, like auto layouts and responsiveness and that's what we do. So what we're using OpenAI for is to help the user generate that brief, create the data model, and then we can take that and turn that into a set of screens and components. At that point, the point of when I clicked the canvas, which was like the last step, which added things to the canvas, that's us. The other input in that process was the UI kit. So the UI kit needs to be best practices from the start. Now we've got one that we think is best practices. You're talking about new features from Figma. We're always playing catch up to that. So there's just no other real way around that. I wish I had an AI way to make that happen faster, but there isn't. So we look. There's certain things that we've seen with our customers that are kind of interesting. That a lot of Figma design work and effort often goes into faking, making something look like it works. We found that actually we take away the requirement of AI because we actually get it working. So, and by the way, it's finished now. Like these were the generated sample. So this here is like the rosy light. So these are generated content. This is, so if we went back to the wineries, you can see it's actually gone to Unsplash. It's just some strange reason. It's picked up the Sonoma County Winery. Is that a real winery? Probably not. It was established in 2000, small fund operating. You could probably Google it and see if it is. We just limited, the reason we limited the amount of content that created, it just takes a lot of time in a demo, which is why like not all of these wineries will have wines. That is a good question. We try and produce best practices, HTML, and for the native app, a lot of that relies on the operating system to be accessible. Like it's actually pretty good at it. So it's kind of abstracted at that layer. I wouldn't say that we're perfect at this point in time. It's something that we continue to work on, but we've got the luxury of that. If we get a definition of an application, our code controls what comes out of that. So we can make that as accessible as we can, once, and it applies to everything that we produce. So again, we try and, obviously do that as best as possible, but, it's being a small company, it's always hard. When we sort of look at the landscape, like one of the things that we do uniquely is that we allow you to generate both a native application and a website, and the two are integrated. There's a couple of tools out there that take some of the Figma stuff to native apps, but you still need to bring the back end. We do all of that. So this is a full stack application that is running in Kubernetes that can be scaled horizontally and that. The types of applications that you can build over here, I know this was a very simple one, but trying to build those in Webflow, like when you're getting into things like business process and those things, I think that's a very different use case to what we're seeing with tools like Webflow. We actually use Webflow for our website, which is great. But when you're building a retirement village application or a medical application, it's a different ballgame. So I think that's really where, and to give you the design control inside Figma that you can iterate on this. So every time you change it, all you do is you come in, you change your design in Figma and hit that publish button, and literally 30 seconds later, you have it working on the native device or on your browser. That's next level. So that's kind of what we've been hearing from our customers. Yeah. Every one of them are using it to make changes. They never get it right the first time, and they're iterating inside Figma and, publishing sometimes many times a day. And the reason I know this is we actually had a bug with certain things the other day where you had to publish the entire Figma file, and we've got a feature that allows you just to publish one screen. And we're going, it's taking too long. We just want to publish one screen. So that bug got fixed the other day, but yeah, so it's a real iterative process, and that's the beauty of this, and it's giving power to the designers or the Figma people in the room to be able to make those changes and not have to wait 2 weeks for somebody like me to implement them. So we're using a Node.js at the server side. We're using MongoDB under the covers. We wanted, MongoDB runs some of the largest databases in the world. These solutions, by the way, are not, even though the example that I'm running on now is on a multi-tenant server and you can run it multi-tenant, generally most applications are single tenant, because if you're talking about an application that needs to scale, you can't put all that stuff on the same server. It's not going to scale. You need to be able to scale each application differently. Now, in terms of React Native, we originally, the first version of Buzzy, we used Cordova. So we were just using web as, it killed us. The white screen of death of Cordova was like the death of me. It's going, why is it happening? So we looked at going, native, and when you've got a small team, using a tool like React Native that works for both iOS and Android, was really the only choice we could make. But if you look at React Native as a technology, it's used by all the major corps. Obviously, it came out of Facebook. It's used by, for Instagram, the Facebook app. It's used by Microsoft. You look at their list of customers, it's top-notch tech. So